What's going on, guys? My name is Steve. Thank you for stopping by my channel. I'm just an American guy on a journey to discover my British and Irish ancestry. Today, we're going to be reacting to the average American person versus the average British person. How do they compare? I don't really know what to expect from this video. You know, so far on this journey, I've definitely learned about some of the differences that British people and American people have. Just the other day, I reacted to a video about the differences between British houses and American houses. And you know, I've checked out many different videos that kind of given me a little bit of an overview about some of those differences that these two countries, you know, have or share. But anyways, guys, I thought this video would maybe give us a deeper dive and a better overview of what some of the differences American people and British people have. So let's go ahead and check this out.
Two of the closest allies in the world today are the United States of America and the United Kingdom of Great Britain, with both countries considering their bilateral partnership to be the strongest of bonds. The British-American bloodline runs deep, with millions of Americans identifying themselves as having either English, Scottish, Welsh, or Scotch-Irish ancestry. Given these close ties, we thought it would be fun to compare these two powerful nations in this episode of the infographic show, The Average American versus the Average Brit. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell button so that you can be part of our notification squad. First of all, we should explain what the United Kingdom of Great Britain is, as it's often an area of confusion. When we talk about the UK, we are referring to the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, which is a sovereign state consisting of 4 countries: England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. The average Brit we are discussing today is someone from the UK. In terms of ancestral relations, according to a Census Bureau American Community Survey, nearly 27 million people identified as being part English, over 5.5 million said Scottish, about 5 million said Scotch-Irish, and nearly 2 million said Welsh. Although
that's actually surprising it's that small. I would think it would be higher, but I suppose there's all these other countries that have moved in over the years, Germany and whatnot. So yeah, I'm guessing there's quite a few German descendants here in America.
Though Irish and German Americans make up larger portions of the US public, it's thought there are a lot more Americans that have Brit blood flowing through their veins but no longer consider themselves being anything other than a full-blooded American. With this in mind, we'll start with some comparisons of a physical nature. The average Brit stands just a fraction taller than the average American, with the BBC lately reporting that the average man in the UK is now 5 feet 10 inches and the average woman is 5 feet 5 inches. American men,
I bet it's Americans 5'9.5" and American women are 5'4". That's what I'm guessing.
Men average 5 feet 9.5 inches and American women 5 feet 3.5 inches.
Really? Okay, that's a little bit surprising, but especially about the woman. I thought it was 5'4". It honestly is so weird. It seems like every single woman that I know in America is 5'4". Like everybody, at least they say they're 5'4". I'm not sure. So. That's very close though. 5'9.5", 5'10". It's basically the same thing.
Both countries are considered to be not so well proportioned when compared to other more developed nations, with a new report from the Institute of Health Metrics and Evaluation stating that the USA is in 18th place on the world's most obese nations list. Only Egypt was the other populous nation in the top 20 countries, which was filled mostly by countries in the South Pacific. The UK, however, might also need to get in shape, with reports stating that obesity is a national tragedy, and that by 2025, the UK will be the fattest country in Europe. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention's latest report, the average American male is now 195.7 pounds, and the average woman is 168.5 pounds. The average British man is 186.2 pounds, and the average woman is 154 pounds.
What was it? A pound? Like what? How do you a stone? You guys measure in stones in the UK, right? Isn't there like 13 or 14 stones in a pound, if I'm not mistaken? Let's see, 196. 168. Okay. So far, physically, I'm definitely closer to the because I'm roughly about about 180 pounds, 180, yes, around that roughly, and about 5'10" roughly.
Does the fact both countries are perhaps on the heavy side influence life expectancy? American men on average will live to 77.11 years, and American women 81.94. Citizens of the United Kingdom can expect to clock out at a similar age on average, with male life expectancy standing at 79.1 and female life expectancy 82.8. The median age, meaning half the country is older and half the country younger, is 37.8 in the USA for men and women, and right on 40 in the UK. Which country is making more babies at the moment? Current statistics state that the US and UK are similar here, with births per woman in America averaging 1.84 and in the UK 1.9. Marriage rates have decreased in many developed nations over the last few decades. According to the CDC, in 2015, 6.8 people per 1,000 of the total population tied the knot in the USA, while in the UK that number was 4.5 per 1,000.
Wow. Now that's actually surprising to me. I thought, as soon as I saw the 6.8 per 1,000, I was like, wow, that's so small. That's so little of the population. But then I look over at 4.5. There's like no one getting married. Wow. I wonder what's happened. It's just the younger generations, Generation Z, do they just not want to marry? I don't know. I don't get it. That's surprising, but you guys are having a few more babies than we are. I think both of these are fairly small birth rates. Hopefully the birth rates will increase sometime in the near future, because I don't even think we're having enough babies to keep up with replacing ourselves at this point. That's going to be a problem as people continue aging. You're not going to have those younger people to keep things going. So that's going to be an issue, but I don't know. What are you going to say? What are you going to do?
Around 42% of UK marriages end in divorce, with almost half of US marriages ending the same way.
That's crazy to me, man. My parents got divorced. I was young. I was like 9, I think. My wife's parents got divorced. My mom's actually been divorced twice at this point. But, when I went into marriage, I said there was, my wife and I talked about it, and we're like, there's no way. We don't believe in divorce, period. The end. And I think that's kind of the attitude you have to have when you go into a marriage. We waited 5 years, and I also waited, till I was in my 30s to get married. And so by doing that, I think you definitely are more likely to stay married if you don't get married after 6 months or a year. That does work for some people. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it seems like it worked better years ago. It seemed like, my grandparents and great grandparents, everybody back in the day used to get married really young, and they'd stay married forever. It seems like we're a part of this throwaway culture now that just thinks that, if something's broken, you just throw it away. In our grandparents' day, they were part of the culture. If something's broken, you fix it, and I think that's the attitude you have to have when you go into a marriage. If you want to make sure it works, you got to have this attitude that, things are going to break from time to time. You don't throw away the whole marriage because it breaks. You got to find the reasons that you got married in the first place. You got to look for those. Now, people do change, which is one reason that I do believe that waiting until you're in your late 20s or maybe in your 30s to get married instead of getting married at, 20 can be a positive thing, because as you get older, you're less likely to change. Someone who's 30 is less likely to change as much as someone who's 20. You know what I mean? But what are you going to do? That's crazy. That's a huge divorce rate in both countries.
On that sobering note, we'll take a look at money matters. In terms of industry, both nations are considered champions of the world, but according to the United Nations Economic Commission for Europe, the USA citizen grosses a higher salary than the average UK person. The average gross salary in the USA was the 5th highest in the world at $4,893 per month, while the UK sat in 14th place on the list with an average of $3,461 per month. In terms of cost of living, Americans might need the few extra dollars, with one report putting the USA in 18th place in the world on a cost of living index and the UK in 29th place. We must also note that cost of living and wages can change dramatically from city to city.
Wait, did he just say 29th? Hold on.
And wages can change dramatically from city to city. If we take a look at the economics Big Mac index, we find that the cost of a Big Mac in the US is $5.06, while the Brits only pay $3.07.
Wow. That's a big difference. We might be talking about a single fast food sandwich here, but that just gives an idea of the difference here. We're talking, I don't know, a quarter roughly 25% more expensive in the US, if that is the thing. Now, granted, there are different areas in the UK that are definitely going to be more expensive than the US. I know that. Like, for example, I think energy and just electricity and, all that in general is more expensive in the UK, I'm guessing. I need to look into that more. What does the average, how much does it cost the average British person to, an electric bill per month, for example? I do believe that that's cheaper here. I know that gas and fuel is cheaper in America, but as for rent or more, buying a house or things like that, I think it's more expensive in the U.S.
73 cents. At the same time, the index shows someone in London has to work on average 1 minute longer than someone in New York to buy the same burger.
Really?
At the high end of the earnings scale, the
yeah, okay, I get it. Okay, so maybe I'm off there a little bit.
US is home to the richest man on the planet, Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates, whose fortune amounts to around $87 billion.
Okay, this video is I didn't see the date of this video. This must be a few years old because I think Jeff Bezos passed him, and Elon Musk, I think, is now the most. I think Elon is the most wealthy person in the world now, if I'm not mistaken. I know he passed him at some point.
The richest person in the UK is actually listed as two brothers who are part of the Hinduja family. Their net worth is around $16.9 billion, according to Forbes. In total, there are 134 billionaires based in the UK, according to the Sunday Times, while the USA has the most billionaires in the world at 565.
Well, we also got to take into account the population. In the UK, you got somewhere around 60 some million people. In the US, you got 300 some million people. So I think that difference right there is about the same ratio, roughly. Maybe off a little bit, but it's close when you look at the ratio of 100 and some billionaires to 60 some million people and 500 and some billionaires to 300 and some million people. It's about the same ratio.
What do Americans and Brits get for all their hard work? Well, the Brits don't work as hard, according to one study that divided the total number of hours actually worked by the average number of people in employment per year. The USA was 16th on the list at 34.40 hours per week, and the UK was 24th on the list at 32.25 hours per week. The Brits also get more time off, with workers by law given 5.6 weeks of paid vacation time per year. In the US, there is no such law, and paid time off is an agreement made between the employer and the employee.
I took let's see, I've gone on like what I would consider one vacation in the last 4 years, I think. Maybe 3 or 4 years. And that was because I wanted to go visit family. So, yeah, definitely think that's the case. I don't really like when I think about that. I think of people in my family and I'm like, yeah, that's true. Like we generally don't go on many vacations. Now, granted, I have done a decent bit of traveling, years ago when I was younger, like I've said in past videos, I was in Asia for a very long time, traveling different countries. At that point, we were planning on backpacking, for a number of years, actually, was our goal, before we had a kid and stuff. And we just, some things happened and a family emergency happened back home. We rushed back home and just never made it back out. Ended up getting pregnant. My wife ended up getting pregnant with my daughter. And then, financially things have definitely taken a downturn since then. And so, all those things combined, I definitely want to start working on having more vacation time, though. That'd be good.
Average paid days off in the US is said to be about 10 days, with that number increasing with the number of years in a certain job. The UK has less public holidays, though, at 8 days, with the US enjoying 10 national public holidays. Americans may work harder, but they also seem to be getting more for their buck. While the British public have been dealing with drastically increasing property prices, they also live in very small abodes. Studies have found that Britain's houses on average are some of the smallest in Europe at around 818 square feet. American citizens on average can enjoy much larger living areas, with the average house size being around 2,160 square feet. The US also has more in terms of vehicle ownership. America is third on the list of number of vehicles owned per 1,000 people, at 797, excluding motorcycles and anything else on two wheels. The UK lies in 34th place on the same list with 519 vehicles per.
I think that makes sense. In the UK, it's a smaller nation, and you know, there's better public transportation. In America, for example, you can drive hundreds of miles without having any sort of major public transportation. Obviously, if you go to some of the major cities, you go to New York, Chicago, or whatnot, sure, you're going to have decent public transportation in those cities. But between cities, there's really not much of anything. You can get on an Amtrak that will take you some places, but it's pretty hard to get everywhere you want to go on public transportation. I'm sure people in the UK probably already know that. I think that's definitely a stereotype that is actually true about America.
Per 1,000 people. Rising property prices, expensive cars. What does this mean in terms of borrowing money? Household debt statistics, which is measured by all money owed to financial institutions, whether it be for a house or a BMW, has both the UK and the US in the top 10 countries of the world. For 2016, the UK was in 6th place on the household debt list, and the US not far behind in 7th place. UK citizens looking for a higher education and
That's surprising to me. I would assume that the US would have more debt. I think it's basically because our politicians have put our country in crazy amounts of debt. And plus, we're known to have this consumerism culture here in America. But granted, I know that's kind of everywhere in the West, to be honest, at this point. If you go to any Western nation, no, actually, I'd like to take that back. It's not just in the West, in the East as well. For example, I think the most consumerism I've ever seen in my entire life is when I was in Thailand. Especially when you're in Bangkok, it's insane the amount of just spending on frivolous items you will see. Like, it's interesting. It's just really interesting. That's something that maybe I'll talk about in another video. But I think that. Yeah, I don't think there's quite the amount of consumerism here compared to a lot of other nations, at least from my experience.
A good start in life might also have to take on a lot of debt before they actually embark on a career. While much of Europe enjoys a free ride or low-cost higher education, England is now said to be the most expensive place in the world to get a college degree.
Really?
The latest reports state UK nationals attending an English university can expect annual tuition to be $11,750 compared to the $9,410 Americans pay on average per year. On average, the class of 2016 in the USA owed around $37,172 in loans, while students graduating from a university in England could expect to owe as much as something in the region of $40,000 to $55,000. Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland all have cheaper university tuition fees, or no tuition fee for Scottish people studying in Scotland. Students may still have to borrow to study, though, with a recent report by the Student Loans Company stating the average student debt in Northern Ireland and Scotland was around $26,000 and $15,000 respectively. The Welsh have part of their tuition fees paid for by the Welsh government, but students still rack up debts on average of around $24,000. UK citizens.
What? Okay, that is news to me. I thought people in the UK got free public education. I thought that was one of the things they definitely, just like kind of like the NHS, is your universal health care. I thought that, am I missing something? Because that is news to me. Okay, I've got to relook at that part real quick because I need to understand that, man. That's crazy. That is something I didn't expect. Wow. Okay, hold on.
And a good start in life might also have to take on a lot of debt before they actually embark on a career. While much of Europe enjoys a free ride or low-cost higher education, England is now said to be the most expensive place in the world to get a college degree.
Wow. So, okay. That's crazy. So the UK doesn't have free public education. Based off of what he's saying here, could I be wrong on that? Sure, I don't know, but I'm only going with what he's saying here. I always thought that the UK had free public education. I guess because most of Europe does, I just assumed they did as well. That's crazy. That's something I definitely just learned. Wow. It's more expensive in England to get not public education. Why do I keep on saying public education? I mean a college education. But it's more expensive in England to get a college education than in America. That's crazy. Now, if you average it out for the entirety of the UK, it looks like it's probably a little bit cheaper. But wow. I don't know. Wow, that's crazy.
of their tuition fees paid for by the Welsh government, but students still rack up debts on average of around $24,000.
Wow.
UK citizens may take some comfort in matters of healthcare, with most costs covered by Britain's National Health Service. Americans are not so fortunate, with an article in The Atlantic this year stating that more than a quarter of Americans said that someone in their household was struggling to pay off crushing medical debts. With that, we come to the end of today's show. Head on over to the comments section to let us know which country you'd rather live in and why. And if you like...
Wow. Okay. Now that second to last one, I've already talked about it, but that's shocking to me. I mean, not that I'm not used to the fact that if you want to go to college, you have to pay for it. Obviously, you do here in the U.S. unless you can get some sort of grants or scholarships or whatever. But I'm just surprised. I thought that the UK, because I guess maybe because they had the NHS, I just probably assumed that they also had, paid for college, free college. At least for the first 4 years or whatever, if you want to go and get a, some sort of advanced degree, I didn't necessarily think that was free, but that's actually really surprising. Out of everything on this list, I think that's the most surprising thing to me. I already knew about the size of housing. I learned that not long ago, actually. Smaller house doesn't really bother me. I just like having a space that's large enough for us to have the space we need. I need an office of some sort. It's nice to have a space to put some sort of little library for some books in and things like that. And then having bedrooms for everybody. I only need one bathroom. That's fine. A decent kitchen. The kitchen is the most important thing in an entire house to me. I like to have a nice kitchen. But beyond that, I don't need a ton of extra rooms. So a lot of people in America, I notice tend to get these gigantic houses that really don't really make a lot of sense to me. You're heating this extra space for no reason. And you're just, especially when you see these couples. I mean, you can do it. I'm not judging. That's fine. You want to have a mansion? You want to have 30 bedrooms? I don't care. I'm just saying I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense because you see some of these people who are like single individuals in their 50s or 60s, and they'll have this gigantic house. It's like 4,000 square feet with 6 bedrooms. And it's like, why? It's just, at that point, it's like, I don't know, man. It's just weird. To me, I would rather have a bigger piece of land or a bigger yard than a bigger house, because I'd rather have the ability to grow fruit trees and plants and, just have space outside of my house instead of the inside of the house, if that makes any sense. But I think in America, the average work average work week seems to be a little longer. I think for the most part, everything else was like, okay. I think we're generally have about the same height and weight for the most part. A little heavier in America. But UK women were quite a bit tall. Was an inch and a half tall. But overall, guys, I learned a few new things here, and think it was worthwhile watching. So thank you very much for stopping by. Please click that like button. Feel free to drop your comments or suggestions. And don't forget to subscribe to continue to follow me on my journey to discover my British and Irish ancestry. Until next time, guys, peace.